Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Select Board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and our parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person. Or for those who wish to do so remotely, they may follow the instructions on the top of the agenda. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 38, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body who may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Eagle, the Berkshire Edge, Town of Barrington, and CTSB. Any member of the and other members of the public they do have the permission of the chair. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Since we have 5 select board members all in person tonight, votes will not be roll call. And I will call the first select board's announcement statement. Garfield.
Nothing, thank you.
Eric.
I just want everybody to go out and vote tomorrow. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Ed.
Nothing.
Lee.
No.
Town managers report.
I just have a few quick ones for this evening. In your package for tonight, you should have received a letter from the planning board and a proposal from the finance committee. You're just acknowledging receipt tonight, and we'll discuss those letters at a follow-up meeting if you'd like to. And then, of course, anyone that missed it in one of my earlier announcements, we'll be meeting in public section on November 21st. It's a Monday night. It's our next regularly scheduled board meeting with members of the Great Barrington Fire District to discuss what a merger of our 2 water systems could look like if we decide to pursue that. That's all I have.
Okay, moving ahead, we're going to pass over the night soil abatement at our next meeting on November 21st. Next is license and permits. Betsy Andrews, Executive Director, Southern Berkshire Chamber of Commerce for the 2022 annual holiday stroll, Saturday, December 10th, and permission to use public parking spaces downtown. I don't see Betsy on the line either. I was hoping.
There's someone else.
Is there anyone here? Is there anyone here representing the chamber? There she is. You-
Me already?
Yes,
Yeah.
come right up. Come right up. Microphone should be on,
Okay.
and or if it's not, Mark will turn it on, and just you can give it a little minute about the stroll.
So, I have extra copies if anybody would like one about all the different activities that are planned as always. That's correct. So this year's holiday stroll is as jam-packed as always. As long as we have everybody's permission to go ahead with it. So we start right off with an hour at the library. Then all the regular activities will start. All the normal things, face painting, model trains, displays, letters to Santa, holiday hayride, adult wreath making, Rudolph's Way, kids games, kids crafts, a bonfire and music, photo cutouts throughout the town, the holiday market with bonfires, gingerbread house decorating, holiday selfie booth, elf passport, s'mores by the fire. WSBS will be doing live music, a visit with Santa, the Berkshire Hills Chorus carolers will be caroling throughout town. Berkshire Bus will be involved with the Lucky Bucket Band at Wheeler and Taylor. The live windows. We're hoping that the Berkshire Waldorf carolers will be caroling. The town tree lighting, fireworks, and we'll always finish up with the Locales Youth Choir in concert. So, as always, we have sponsors for every activity so that there's no financial barrier for any family that wants to attend. Everything is free, other than food. So we ask your permission to utilize 4 paid parking spaces at the base of Railroad Street for the hay wagons to safely load and unload, and 4 parking spaces on either side of the entrance to the First Congregational Church TD Bank parking lot, because that's where the vendor area is, and we just don't want anybody driving through there. Other than that, we don't utilize any other parking spaces. We do not block any traffic. The hay wagon just flows with traffic. And I think that's it, other than we'd love to see everybody there. If anybody has any ideas, we do have 2 new ideas, and we're trying to rouse up some sponsors for them. And hopefully we can add them to the list. They wouldn't impact traffic or parking in any way.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to grant to the 2022 holiday shop, sip and stroll use of 4 parking spaces on Main Street and 2 parking spaces on each side of the entrance to the TD parking lot on Saturday, December 10th.
And also permission to hold the event.
And permission.
And it's just a correction, it's 4 spots on Railroad Street. You said Main, I just want.
Oh, okay. That's just, this says, okay.
Second. Any questions or discussions?
Excited for it.
Yeah, we all are.
That's great. I think last year we had record numbers, so I'm assuming that hopefully this year is similar.
I know that there was just since fireworks, there's certain sensitivities in the community, so just
Yeah.
we can just make sure people are
Absolutely, and the positive, if there is a positive thing for the people that don't like fireworks, the show is short. It's winter, it's cold. People are only gonna stand out there for so long, so it's short.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 That's unanimous. Good
Yeah,
luck, Betsy.
see everybody there?
Public hearing, Matthew Porter, Krishna Bhakti Corp., DBA Plaza Package. Rashna Korea, manager for a transfer of the current all alcoholic package store liquor license, including pledge of inventory and pledge of license from Carjack Inc., DBA Plaza Package, 155 State Road, Barrington. Reggio Amori, manager. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a to open the public hearing.
Second. This one is a roll call vote. Roll call vote is Garfield. Aye. Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I, unanimous. And we have someone here?
Yeah, you have both Matthew and Ray
Okay.
online, and their mics are open.
Okay, go right ahead, Matthew and Ray, whoever's going to speak, go right ahead.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Good evening, board. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm the attorney for Krishna Bhakti Corporation. Before the board is the transfer of the all alcohol license for Plaza Package at 155 State Road in Great Barrington. Along with me tonight is Jigar Senroza. Mr. Senroza is the president of the corporation, one of the principals. Along with him is Rashna Korea, who is Mr. Senroza's wife. She'll be the day-to-day manager, proposed license manager of the location as well. So this is a very experienced ownership group. Mr. Senroza owns a couple other licenses in Berkshire County, as does his partner, Ms. Krishna Patel. So very experienced ownership group, no violations at any of their other locations. So they certainly understand the responsibilities that come along with operating a license. All of the corporate owners are alcohol tip certified, as would any of their future employees. They'll plan on having a scanning machine in place as well. So this should be a very smooth transition. It's been a very smooth transition so far, I should say, with the seller. So with that, there should really not be any major changes to the operation of the store. There's no changes to the hours, no changes to the structure. Rockland Trust company is financing the transaction. So as part of the application, there is a request for approval of a pledge of that license. But otherwise, it's a fairly straightforward transfer. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions that the board may have, and Mr. Sabrosa can as well.
Any questions? None in the audience, none in attendees. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed. Yeah. Lee.
Aye.
And I. And any discussion among? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the transfer of the current all alcohol package store liquor license, including pledge of inventory and pledge of license from Carjack Incorporated, doing business as Plaza Package at 155 State Road, Great Barrington, to Matthew Porter, Krishna Corp, doing business as Plaza Package, Rashna Korea, manager.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. License. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I. It's unanimous. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Tax classification hearing. Ross.
Could hold it. Yeah, just hold it close to your mouth.
Yeah, it should be on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ross DeVore. I'm the principal assessor with the town of Great Barrington. And my purpose here tonight is to present data related to the tax classification hearing so that the board can decide on the appropriate residential check. With that, I'll go through some of the data that we have. At the tax classification hearing, the select board is required to vote to implement one or a combination of 4 classification options for distributing the tax levy amongst property owners. The options are open space discount, residential exemption, small commercial exemption, single or split tax rate. The town currently has a single tax rate with no exemption or discount given to specific classes of property. A vote to grant discounts or exemptions to specific property classes would result in a higher tax rate for non-qualifying property owners, as the tax burden would shift away from the exempted recipients. A vote in favor of more than one option would result in different tax rates for different property classes. Regardless of the classification options chosen, the amount of the overall tax levy would not change. Historically, as part of the annual budget policy, the Select Board and Finance Committee have endorsed a single tax rate option, providing no exemption or discount to particular property class groups. Voting a residential factor of 1 affirms a single tax rate and the proportionate sharing of the levy between all classes of property. Voting a residential factor of less than 1 would split the tax rate, thereby shifting the tax burden away from the residential class and onto commercial, industrial, and personal property owners. 2 tax rates would be created: a lower tax rate for residential and open space, and another higher tax rate for commercial, industrial, and personal property owners. Land enrolled in chapter 61, 61A, or 61B would be subject to a higher tax rate, as would be classified as commercial for tax purposes. With that, we'll look at the exemption and discount options. Open space is defined as land maintained in an open or natural condition and must be contribute significantly to the benefit and enjoyment of the public. It does not include land taxable under provisions of Mass General Law 61, 61A, or 61B, land with permanent conservation restrictions, or land held for the production of income. The open space discount is up to 25% of the selected residential factor. By discounting certain percentages of value attributed to open space, the tax levy burden will shift onto residential taxpayers, thereby increasing the tax rate. Presently, no lands are classified as open space because those that might benefit receive a higher discount by enrolling in chapter 61 land options. And therefore, as in the past, we've not recommended this adoption. The residential tax rate, the residential exemption grants an exemption to property that is the principal residence or domicile of taxpayers under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5C. The exemption amount may not exceed 35% of the average assessed value of all residential properties. Granting the exemption increases the residential tax rate as it shifts the burden within the entire residential class away from lower valued owner occupied dwellings to dwellings valued at a higher than break-even. Multifamily properties, apartment buildings, vacant land, and non-domicile property owners. Properties of domicile taxpayers below the break-even would pay fewer taxes, while those at higher values would pay more. Currently, only 14 of 351 Massachusetts communities grant the residential exemption. These communities are typically large cities or towns with many non-owner occupied properties like apartment buildings, resort communities with many seasonal residents like Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, and places down around the Cape. And therefore, it is something that we've not recommended here as well. The small commercial exemption may be applied to certain commercial properties whose assessment is less than $1 million and occupied businesses that are certified by the Department of Employment and Training and have no more than an average of 10 employees in the previous year. If adopted, up to 10% of the assessed value of an eligible property would be exempt. The property owner is the direct beneficiary of the tax saving and is not required to pass the savings on to the tenants. The total gross value of small commercial properties is redistributed to non-qualifying commercial properties owners from higher tax rates. Split tax rate. Adopting a single tax rate requires the select board to vote and maintain a residential factor of 1. A single tax rate allows for classes of property to pay only their share of the tax levy without shifting the burden to a particular property class. Voting to split the tax rate shifts the burden from the residential class to commercial, industrial, and personal property classes and requires the select board to vote the residential factor of less than 1. The minimum residential factor for the town under the Department of Revenue is 0.815635, which allows for a CPI shift of 1.50. With that, we'll get into some of the more specifics of where we are. So the tax rate is calculated by dividing the tax levy by the total value of all taxable property. The tax levy is 26,182,218, and the total value of all property is 1,860,810,337. If you do that math, it comes out to 1407 per thousand for fiscal 23, which is a decrease of 79 cents over last year. As you can see from the chart below, again, for fiscal 23, you're looking at 1407 tax rate, which is down 79 cents. And we were down last year, $1.13. So it's come down almost $2 in the last between last year and this year. Excess levy capacity is the difference between the maximum allowable levy and the amount that is levied. And you can see for fiscal 23 that the maximum allowable levy is 28,149,434. What we're currently levying is 26,182,218, which gives us excess levy capacity of 1,967,216. If you guys have any questions, let me know. New growth this year, we ended up with 26,231,037, which translated into $389,794 in taxable dollars, tax revenue. So if you look at that, if you break it down, that was basically that 26,231,037, 15,978,500 was in residential growth. 1,107,347 was in commercial growth. Nothing in industrial, and 8,551,190 in personal property. That's how that broke down. And just as a note, over $6 million of that was in new homes. So what does that mean? So if you look at the median and average family, basically if you take the median number, which is if you were to array all the values, that middle number for fiscal 23, the median value is $399,600. And then a tax rate of $14.07 would translate into a tax of $5,622, which is a $445 increase over the prior year. If we look at it from the average would be $500,895, and then a tax rate of $14.07 translates to $7,147. And tax, which is a $413 increase over last year. On the commercial side, again, look the same way, if you look at the median value for fiscal 23, the median value ended up being $495,500. At that tax rate, it came out to $6,972, which is a decrease from last year of $144. And if we look at it from an average standpoint, the average commercial value was $824,573, which translates into a tax of $11,602, which is a decrease of $754,000. So the commercial side of things has gone down 2 years in a row.
It's 754.
Say again?
I thought you said 754,000.
No, $754. And on the fire district side, the tax rate is calculated on the fire district side, by the closed levy divided by all taxable property. So their levy was $990,377. The value of all property was $980,571,956, which comes out to $1 on the fire district side, which is down 2 cents from last year. Any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions, just on, comparing the residential to the commercial side. So that obviously the commercial side of things has come down substantially in the last 2 years, and I mean, that's based off of sales?
Yes.
Yeah, so just kind of shocking to me that commercial stuff has come down that far while our houses have gone up that much, but that's.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know they say the market's turned around a little bit, and they talk about that in news, and it's probably more related to nationally. I can tell you locally, I mean, and obviously we have to look back, right? We can't afford, so we're always looking back at qualified sales. Qualified sales are not foreclosures or the motor sold to the sun, and they have true arm's length sales. And when we look at those, I mean, we're still feeling the effects of the real estate market. I mean, the deeds that even came in last month. I mean, there are still sales that are significantly over what we have properties assessed at, and that's driving the value up. I mean, from my side of it, there's only really two primary reasons your value is going to change. You either did something to the property, put an addition on, a garage, a shed, a pool, or it's the market that's driving the values up. And we're seeing that throughout the assessing community in all towns, not just here in Berkshire County, but across the county. And I mean, I would like to, I mean, last year I was hoping from this next fiscal year in 24, we kind of see it go the other way, but you know, based on what we're seeing right now, I'm not sure that we're going to see it come down, you know, if they keep purchasing houses, you know, over assessed.
The commercial is not happening that way, so
Right.
in a situation like this, to ease the burden on the taxpayers, this is where we would want to possibly consider a split tax rate.
You certainly could look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, you know, normally when I look at all options. I mean, I think if right now, if there's something that we're trying to do now, it would probably take the residential tax rate, I want to say from 1407 down to maybe 12 something. But the commercial side would go up to like $21 per thousand. You know, it's that kind of a split. If we go to the maximum shift, which for Great Barrington is 1.50.
We have someone in the audience, Ann O'Dwyer. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Ann. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Hi, Ross. I just wanted to know something. I
Name and
think there's
address,
a
Ann,
type-
please, for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, this is Ann O'Dwyer, 26 Kirk Street. But I'm also a member of the Finance Committee, and so I, do lots of calculations. And Ross, I think there's a typo on page 4 where you note the levy and the total taxable values, and it's in the percentage change column. It's not math, it's not a calculation error, but I think what you put in there was the proportion of, say, for example, the 0.04 on the tax levy. Do you see it's a 0.04 change proportion? But then you also put in the percentage sign. It's actually 4% or 0.04. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, you're right.
It's just some typos, but just for the record, so that people aren't thinking it's that small of a, it's not a 0.04% increase, it's a 4% increase or a 0.04 proportional increase.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Sam.
and that goes down the table. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
No problem.
anyone else have any questions or comments? Please, do I have a motion?
Can I?
Yeah.
I have a suggestion, which I could do through a somewhat complicated motion, if it's okay. So that it would be that we accept these recommendations, but set ourselves up so that if in the future we did want to do a residential exemption, that were a possibility. In other words, the motion would be to accept the recommendation, but then take some steps. If I could read it, we could discuss it.
So my only, and you can, my only comment is we've done this before. We discussed it in January
Right.
and then we always turn it down.
That's why I came up with these steps.
I mean, if I might.
Yeah.
I think this is just my opinion. I mean, I think if the residential or something worked out here, it would have been done more than we've seen it. You know what I mean? It's not out anywhere west of 495. And I think, we did an in-depth study on it last year, hired an independent consultant working with the most current data that we have. I think if we want to try and do something, I think there may be other exemptions, other types of exemptions that we could probably research and look at. I mean, I certainly could work through the assessment community and the MAAL, maybe come up with something in lieu of that would still try and help some of the residents, okay? And maybe even find something that's personally reimbursing the state. I think, it might be worth taking a look at that before we circle back around on the residential. I mean, we're certainly going to do whatever you want us to do. That's our job, but I'm thinking you can go through it again. I'm not sure. It's just going to be a significant difference.
They included bringing it to the voters at town meeting and asking them for a non-binding, ask the state representatives to work towards a local option to fix the fact that rentals are not, can't take advantage of it. In some places they can. To put the cost of implementing it into the budget, so it's there in case the final one, next year's select board decides to do it.
Go ahead and make your motion.
Okay. So the motion is to accept the recommendations with the 1407 rate, and just accept all the recommendations.
I would rather we have two separate motions.
Okay.
Because for one, I'm gonna vote against one of them and I'm not gonna vote against the tax one.
All right, then why don't we deal with this first?
Okay, so you made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so the motion was to adopt a single tax rate of 1407 per thousand for all classes of property for FY 23.
We're actually adopting a residential shift of one.
Richard, fine.
The tax rate will be approximately.
Right.
Tax rate will be approximately 1407.
Thank you.
Same thing on the fire district side.
Are we still discussing?
Yeah.
So I'm actually what you had suggested, that there are other, things in our toolbox that we might be able to bring some relief to a taxpayer. So what I would hope is that maybe you could come back and do some research, and after you've done research, to come back and provide us with some options. Because that's something that I'm particularly interested in.
Yeah, definitely. I can certainly reach out, and see what's available out there. And then, sometime actually before this point, we can see if there's some other type of exemption that may work and provide a benefit to help some people. Absolutely.
So the motion on the table now is a single tax rate. Any other discussion on that?
I just want to say I want to piggyback on what Lee said, and I appreciate that. It's very truthfully, I'm leaning for the residential exemption because of how it can help people. So I would appreciate doing that homework so we can find out if not, I'll do it.
Okay.
I just got one more
Yeah.
comment. So I was reading into a little bit this myself, and I see that they've expanded the residential exemption to include year-long leases and houses like that. So that's something that would interest, I think, a lot of people to incentivize them to do more long-term leases as opposed to short-term, so. Just want to put that out there as well.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor. Garfield.
Sorry.
No, I was good, because it's a public hearing.
Which one is this?
This is just setting the single tax rate.
Do you want me to make the motion?
No, it's already made and you
Oh.
seconded. Garfield.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And I. Ed, your next motion. It's
All right.
unanimous, by the way.
So this motion would be to ask our state representatives to work toward a local option to allow Great Barrington to include the year-round rental in the residential exemption. And I'll send this to you.
Great.
And to place a non-binding question on the annual town meeting warrant this spring, asking voters what they would like, and to include the cost of implementing residential exemption in the next fiscal year budget, and to ask the select board, the next select board, to vote on the residential exemption early enough to adopt it if that's their decision.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah, my only thing, I'd like to see Ross come back with his suggestions before we take any action. That would be my only thing, is I'm gonna vote no on this, because I would rather just schedule Ross to come back either in December or January, whenever, he's ready, and make some recommendations. Since he's our professional.
I would have no problem postponing this as long as it's in time for the budget. That's really our limiting factor.
Or December, January is in
Yeah,
time for the budget.
right.
Ross, could you come back to us by, let's say, January,
Sure,
with some suggestions?
absolutely.
Then if there's no objection with the second, I'll withdraw that.
You withdraw the
Who is
second?
second? I would do the second.
Will you withdraw the second?
I'm not sure. We could still make this motion if Ross doesn't come up with other things that. Okay, yes, all right, if that's the case, I will.
So we will put you on the agenda for January.
Okay, and if I'm ready before then, I'll let Mark know.
Yeah, please. Anyone else have anything else?
No, I'm just gonna say that when you come back and you're doing your homework, I still may look at something else.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the only other thing.
Now we have to have the fire district.
That's gotta be a second meeting.
Yeah.
A motion.
Do you have anything else for us?
No, I just need to make sure that we have a short week this week and tomorrow's the election, obviously.
Yeah.
So I just need to make sure that some of the forms and Gateway, the LA5 and recap get signed off by the appropriate people. So that I can submit that to the Department of Revenue for approval, so that we can get a tax file uploaded, so that I can send it over to the treasurer's office so they can get the tax ready to go.
When will the paperwork be ready for us to sign?
It is ready.
Oh, do you have it here?
I have hard copies here, but I think you need to do it electronically. I'm not sure.
We don't have to do it electronically.
No, I'll sign on there, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Mark will get it done.
thank you.
Thanks. man. Buddy, we're gonna have-
Okay, I have a motion open.
Why don't you give him the microphone, please?
Thank you. Walter Atwood, Maple Avenue, Great Barrington. I'm chairman of the Prudential Committee of the Great Barrington Fire District. Could I have a motion to open our meeting, please?
Motion.
Second, all in favor? Aye. The tax rate for the town of Great Barrington is going to be $1, as Ross mentioned. The total estimated receipts for the fiscal year 2023 are $1,078,697. This includes water revenue, interest, demands on taxes, interest on deposits, late penalties, final water meter reads, turn on fees, tie-in, tap fees, backflow, test, hydrant, and sprinkler rentals. The fire district tax levy for the year is going to be $990,377.67. So I have a motion for a second, please. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, everyone. Before I forget, there are 6 panelists and 28 attendees. on the meeting, more in person. Under previous business, Housatonic School RFP Phase 2 presentation by WGM Properties LLC, Select Board, and public question and answer session to follow. Gentlemen,
Should I use this? Or
Please.
speak? Use this?
yeah, so they can hear you at home.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present this proposal. My name is Dave Carver. I am co-owner of CT Management Group. We are the proposed developer of this project. With me tonight is Dan Soldado, our proposed project manager, construction manager, Pete Ciccone, my partner in the management company, and of course, Robert Harrison, the architect, who will be guiding us through more drawings. CT Management Group is a real estate management and development company operating up and down Berkshire County. We've been doing this for a very long time, dating probably back to the early 1980s. What I'd like to do, if it's all right, is to read a summary of our proposal that we originally submitted, and hopefully after that we can sit back and answer any questions that you may have in detail. Our proposal involves creating 10 two-bedroom apartments and addresses the strong need in Berkshire County for quality market rate housing. Over the past 50 years, the production rate of rental housing has lagged far behind the production of deep subsidy, low-income housing regulated by the federal government. This housing is generally defined by HUD as serving households with incomes below 50% of the area median income. We are proposing in this project to serve residents with household incomes of up to, but no higher than, 100% of the median household income. This cap is offered due to the inclusion of town funds in the development budget and the need to reserve the units for this target market. We propose to document the income limit through a locally controlled rent regulatory agreement that runs with a term of the mortgage of approximately 30 years. The rents would be capped at no higher than 30% of this area median household income, including utilities. The area median household income, as reported by HUD, is currently $92,100, yielding a maximum monthly rent of $2,300, including all utilities. However, in order to remain competitive in the rental market and best serve the target market, we are proposing initial rents of $1,765, including heat. The tenants would pay for their own electric and air conditioning and estimated at $125 per month for a total housing cost of $1,890 per month. We also propose creating 20 parking spaces or 2 spaces per unit and 1 drop-off spot for deliveries without the need to have a driveway on the east side of the building. We consider that a sensitive side of the property overlooking the park space. And we would like to eliminate that asphalt and put the parking around the other 2 sides of the building. Achieving this rent level with a high cost of adaptively reusing this building will require the use of historic tax credits and a grant offered by the town and the RFP in conjunction with private bank financing and developer equity. With that, I'd like to open it up to detailed questions from the board and perhaps a presentation on what we're planning on building with Robert Harrison.
Well, why don't we do Robert first and then we'll do the question.
Yes.
Is there a way to get that? So people at home. can
We're
see
gonna-
it?
You tell me where you want me to put it. I'm gonna give you your own full copy to follow along. Where would be the best place to set it? You can just come a little closer. That one?
Mark, this is Chris. If this is something that was in the packet and you want to share it on screen as well, we could do that.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Chris?
What are,
Everything I'm presenting now was in the packet, yes.
okay, just let me know what you'll start with.
Let's start with the site plan.
Sure. And then the board can see it physically and everybody else can then see what you're showing.
That's exactly right. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. So basically, as David said, the idea is on the west side facing the park, that we would have no asphalt, but the building would have grass coming right up to the building. And that we would have our parking behind or on the north and on the west sides. We would set the dumpster out there, and there'd be a drop off here directly from the street, just for the small box type trucks that bring either FedEx or UPS or deliveries of that sort, which, you know, with 10 units is bound to be quite a few per week. And that's really it. The parking is distributed very much the way Foresight had originally done in their initial feasibility study. But again, because there were only 10 units, we really only need 20 spots. And then the next thing I'd like to show is the first floor plan.
Is this it?
Yeah, that's it. No, that's the basement. Cool. And that is the first floor, yeah. Whoops. I am showing the basement. I didn't want to. I knew it looked the same. Well, they are very much the same. The first and second floors are the same. So this is the first floor plan. And it's just, this seems to be collapsing. Falling. Definitely gotta be a budget item for next year. All right, so in any case, the units are really good size. They're a little over 1,200 square feet each. And we've preserved the main hallway. You come in, there's a nice individual entry with closet. Everybody has their own stack washer and dryer, a nice galley kitchen, a large living room, dining room, and then 2 bedrooms. They're all 2-bedroom units. Again, 1,200 square feet each. And the second floor is identical to the first floor. They're all really quite nice.
Excuse me, you said large hallway, is it the existing hallway or you're changing the configuration?
The existing hallway, it's a little bit narrower. We are putting some storage and mechanical space for each of the units in the hallway. So instead of being 20 feet wide, it's down to about 12 feet wide. So, but it's still significant. And then the stairwells remain unchanged, and those become the entries both north and south. And the third floor is the same. And then
May I ask you something around the first floor right now?
yeah,
I don't see, maybe I'm missing it, anything that shows anything handicap accessible or handicap people to.
right, because there are only 10 units, it's not required, and we're not providing that. So there are 2 triggers for architectural access. One is if there are 12 units or more, all the common spaces need to be accessible. And again, there are only 10 units, so that won't be the case. And then if there are 20 units or more, at least 1 out of each 25% need to be accessible. So we're below both those triggers, and we're not going to be providing handicap accessible units. They're all going to be, I mean, they're all in, good size, but the accessibility is limited by access to the building itself.
Do we have a fire plan for that?
Fire plan.
Well, an escape route or where people would go if there's a fire, if there's an.
Yeah, so there's all the units are accessed from a central corridor, and there's a way out at either end. It's the existing configuration. And then at the basement level, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in each corner. second floor, I can show you that, but it is identical to the first floor, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there are 2 units in the basement. So this is the basement plan. So the 2 units face the park. It's where there are windows. And then this is the street, parking on these 2 sides. And in the corners of the building facing the parking lot, there's 10 storage units. So each unit has its own private storage in the basement. And then the existing boiler room, we're going to reuse as a boiler room, and the mechanical equipment will be in there. And that's the whole plan. So questions for?
Forgive me if I'm not seeing it, but what's the laundry facilities? What's the
Every-
plan?
Every unit has their own.
Okay, so that's part of it. Do the
Correct.
renters don't need to provide their own laundry machines, or will that be in,
Will there be?
Included,
that'll be
it's an
included?
included appliance. in the
So when
unit.
you move in, okay.
There was, I think it was in the printout. And in the parking map there, it was showing the gray area. Does that symbolize anything? The shaded?
Could Chris put that back up on
The first slide, Chris.
yes, I had some comments on that to clarify.
Sure. He's working on it now. There we go.
So I just wanted to ask about the shaded area, and then also in the printout, it was discussing, I'm guessing we're gonna be, you'll be looking for an easement or something for the last few parking spaces up there on the
Yes,
top left.
yes, several things. This is a little tight, obviously, but we wanted to demonstrate the ability to get 20 spaces around these 2 sides of the building while keeping this open space. So there will be some modification here with the town for these spaces, and also back here. Yeah, that's correct. There's also a grading situation that we would want to work jointly with the town to smooth out this grade to make that work better. There's a telephone pole, there's some grading issues here, but it would appear that the topography would allow that to be smoothed out.
And in fact, in conversations with Foresight, they confirmed that regrading would still allow us to continue to use the same 2 catch basins without having to change water drainage in any way. And that light gray is actually a holdover. I'm not certain what the intentions were for the original drawing, but that's actually just part of the original drawing that we built our drawing on top of.
The 20, I just having trouble counting. The 20 spaces are along the back of the building and the side.
10, 7, and then it looks like 11 here.
Okay, so not those other spaces right along Pleasant Street are still with the.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. So we're trying to concentrate the parking right on this side of the building and this side of the building, and eliminate the asphalt on this side of the building completely. With a 1 drop off spot, which would be is very useful for a property like this.
I have a couple, and you excuse me if I'm not exactly correct in my assumptions, because I'm not quite sure if even the layout completely as you don't. I have not heard anything about access for egress for fire trucks, or you get in emergency vehicles. Is there a safe way for that to be done? Is there easy egress for that? And also for dump trucks, for garbage. And
We're
lighting.
proposing the dumpster, there's an existing dumpster next to the town building right here. We think right next to it, there's space for the dumpster that will service this building. So I think that ease of access is good for dumpsters. Emergency vehicles, once again, this is shortened a little bit. This is a straight run right into the building. We also have, this is going to be deep enough so that a police vehicle, an ambulance, maybe not a fire truck, but those type of emergency vehicles, smaller ones, will fit in this spot right here.
And what kind of lighting do you have? There, is it gonna be?
Well, we would obviously go to the zoning rules and for the town to determine the location of lighting and the lumen level of the lighting. And that would mostly be provided for parking security all the way around the building to get good safe access into either side of the building.
Also for the residents? They'll be lighted well enough for them to.
Very well, yeah, that's going to be a requirement of the marketplace and also the building.
Right, and the good news is there won't need to be any lighting from the building towards the park.
You're looking, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Few questions. First one is historic tax credits. So could you let us know how much you're applying and what the timeline would look like for the historic tax credits?
That's probably the most difficult part of putting the financial stack together, because it typically it's been taking so long to do that. We are finding from talking to our consultant that projects that are ready to go and that meet the criteria easily move much faster, and that's going to be critical in this project to do that. Typically, the state and federal credits are about 20%. And so if the project is 3.5 million, that's 25% of that for each. So we need to raise about $1 million in the capital stack from those two credit sources. And that typically will take about a year. And that's if we're on schedule.
Okay. So follow up with that, are you pretty confident that you'll be receiving these tax credits? And do you have, if for some reason it takes longer, you don't receive them, how's that gonna work into your overall budget? And will
That is admittedly a problem. If the financing doesn't come through either from our local bank or from the credits, yes, the project obviously isn't in jeopardy. I mean, our equity, the equity that we've committed has been put aside, but that's only 10 or 15% of the total project cost.
So with this uncertainty, how do we, if we're waiting for the historic tax credits to come in and you're very reliant on this to meet your budget, then where do we fit in? I mean, if you don't get the historic tax credits, then what happens?
I think that if the town is seriously considering our proposal and understanding that we need the private bank financing and the credits, then you would need to put a timeline on that and a date certain.
So with that, like, if the historic tax credits didn't come about, would you be looking to the town to make up that difference? Or what would be the B plan if for some reason that doesn't pan out?
I'm not sure how realistic that is. I know that the town has dedicated some funds that we have used in our capital planning. I know that there's a CPA fund, but that's a small amount of money. To replace $1 million would be very difficult. I would be very uncomfortable going to the town unless the town had a pot of money to do that. I would personally feel uncomfortable asking for that. The town has put forward the 650. I know that there may be something, a small amount that we could ask for in the CPA for contingencies, but a gap of 1 million, I would feel uncomfortable unless the town invited us there.
Oh, no, I was just wondering what the B plan would be.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
You've done projects throughout the county.
Yeah,
What's your record on historic tax credits?
we haven't used them all that much recently, only because some of the buildings we're doing are churches. And we discovered that when you renovate churches, and we've done 4, converting into market rate housing in the last 7 or 8 years, that they will not allow the credits to be used on a church because they consider the sanctuary as important as the outside of the building. In a building like this, schools are done all the time. So they will typically allow renovations to occur on the outside and the inside without jeopardizing the credit. But in the churches, they're pretty clear that the sanctuaries cannot be subdivided. And we've done it 4 or 5 times, and they always come back with the same answer. It looks like a great project, but it's not something we can't allow it under the preservation guidelines.
I still have.
Go ahead.
So switching the subject to renters. So when we're looking at 10 units, are there any thoughts about having set asides for Great Barrington residents or people that work in Great Barrington? Or
We would leave that. I am saying we've been through this conversation many times up and down the county on our projects, and I would leave that to the town if you wanted I know that the state allows that to occur, and to the maximum extent that the state allows that, and the town wants it, we'd be happy to comply with that. If you want them all, 100%, half,
So that would be something that we would.
something you can dictate, and we'd be happy with as long as it follows the state guidelines. And I think the state guidelines do allow for that to occur.
Last question, is it a month-to-month lease or is it a year lease, or have you thought you can?
Our residential leases are all starting at 1 year.
Okay.
We have had some unusual projects where we have actually offered 2, 3, 4 year leases for people that don't want to buy a condominium, but would like to be in the Berkshires. And so, but the typical market rate residential lease is 1 year.
So each year there would be an income qualification to make sure that they still fit in with.
We do that,
100%.
and the one that's probably closest to what we're proposing is a little project we did in Williamstown. We converted a church and a rectory, and we used CPA funds to do that. And there's a rent regulatory agreement. There's a homemade format, so we consider it market rate housing, but we have a limit because we use CPA funds, and we wanted to target people above the Section 8 level, but below, say, 75 or 80,000. So really target that market that is often missed, the people you talk about, the police, firemen, that are ultimately left out when we do the deep subsidy low-income projects. They're not there, they're not qualified. So we felt very strongly in that case that we wanted to specifically have a window from about 40,000 to 80,000. This was back 10 years ago. And it worked exactly the way we planned, and we have a rent regulatory with the town recorded. And so we submit a report to them every single year, indicating the residents and their income levels to make sure we're in that zone.
And can I just add to that? Again, look really closely at the floor plans. Look, they're 2-bedroom, they're significant size, there's plenty of public space, there's a significant kitchen. These apartments will fit a family.
Yeah. Are there pets on there?
Of course. Yeah, no, we allow pets. We allow pets in projects like this. The site can allow it. And, we have rules, of course, for the pets, but yes, we do. We have limits, but we do allow them.
Yeah, the 650,000 that was in the RFP you need. You mentioned a TIF in there.
Yes.
Do you have specifics on that, or?
Typically, we've done 4 or 5 of these up and down the county. The most recent one we did in Pittsfield in the firehouse on Tyler Street. We did a 10-year TIF. And this is probably very similar to that. So it was never on the tax rolls, a firehouse for 100 years. So we started 0, and then over 10 years, we bring it up to full value. That's what we propose there. That's what they accepted.
Like 10 steps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Whatever. I'm sure you have a formula that you normally use, but some kind of a 10-year process. They go from 0 to 100% over 10 years. In the case down the street on Tyler Street, we did a big church complex, St. Mary's. That was a big monster complicated project. We actually did a 20-year TIF there only because it was so expensive to do. But that was a stretch, admittedly. But it seems to me, from what I've seen up and down the county, 10 years seems to be fairly normal in a case like this.
That's my only question. Thank you.
Let me just, Eileen, go ahead.
I was wondering how much you're expecting from the town. I didn't see a lump sum in your summary.
If you look at the Excel spreadsheet we had submitted that shows the operating budget and the capital stack, I believe that there was the 650,000 that was in the RP was listed in our capital stack.
Oh,
What's the 650,000?
Yes.
and that's in the packet? I'm just not seeing it.
Not this packet. I think it's in this.
It's in, I think
It's
we
in the
submitted it several times. We initially had it.
Okay, sorry.
The original packet. No, it's okay. Good question to
All right.
ask. Okay, other questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
So Dave, you've done quite a few residential multifamilies, units
Right.
throughout the county. And if we were to look at what this is closely aligned with in terms of finish, and where would we kind of go to have a sense of what you're thinking?
This is probably most similar to a project at one of the buildings on the St. Mary's campus on Tyler Street in Pittsfield, the school building. We call it the Morningstar Apartments. It was the St. Mary's complex, church, school, rectory, and convent. The school is a little bit bigger than this. It has 10 units. And the basement is all common area there. We have a fitness center and storage area. But in terms of fit and finish and systems, almost identical to what we're proposing here. Everybody has their own utility systems. We have a central exhaust system for the building, sprinkler system. And it's a typical shape of school.
So what's the address of that? Do you have?
It's, what is the address of that? It's,
Just on Powder Street.
If you Google the former St. Mary's Church, it's,
Well, there's multiple numbers. I go to 653.
Okay,
Get you
somewhere
probably
around.
to the church.
Yeah.
But it's one complex with 29 units in all 4 buildings, and we finished that about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, thank you.
And the firehouse we're finishing, any minute, right? Any minute, right? Any minute.
so again,
But that's
it's
only
a campus with 4 buildings. You can't mistake the church. It's not that building. And the convent and the rectory are both very small buildings. So
It's actually-
outside of the church, it's the largest building. It's a large rectangular building.
Right.
It's the former school.
In tax assessor lingo, I believe it's 85 Plunkett Street. I mean, but that's where it's actually addressed on the tax bill. It's
Oh,
85
interesting.
Plunkett Street, one of the side streets off the highway.
Okay, thank you.
But it's almost identical to this in terms of the size of the units and the systems that we're proposing.
Go ahead.
Just with the AC units and the heat pumps and all that, where are they gonna be located?
That's a good question. You always want to put those someplace where they're close to the air handler, so you don't have big, long runs. But you also have to put them someplace that's sensitive to the building itself. So I think that we are proposing to put them down low and perhaps shrubs or some kind of fence that Robert would design. Some of that might be dictated by Mass Historic. They might say, no, we like a fence and we like it to look like this, or we'd like some shrubs to screen them. So we'd like to screen them. They'd be down low around the perimeter.
There'd be multiple locations, or you're gonna try to center them all in one location and.
I think in this particular case, I think on either end of the building, we don't want anything facing the green too much if we don't have to do that. If we put them on either side, and with a fence, I think that's probably the most appropriate place to put them down low.
And then with the historic tax credit, what other restrictions would they be putting on you as far as? I know they want to keep the exterior of the building, obviously, very. to the
Right.
point,
In this
but-
case, I believe that it's not a slate roof. I think it's already a shingle roof from what all the reports indicate.
It had been, yes.
So that would not be an obstacle. Windows are always a big conversation, and they're either force you to keep them, but if they're not in good shape, then they will ultimately relent to allowing new thermopane windows, energy efficient windows, as long as the design is correct. But everybody always works their way through that one way or another. And then, of course, the brick is it just gets restored. So that only leaves the interior, and there are many school buildings that have been restored and renovated in Berkshire County that have received the credit. So Central Annex in downtown Pittsburgh is a big one. That's a great big BCC school. That was converted and they have full historic tax credits. So it's just a negotiation between them and the architects about what kind of design they want to see inside.
And ultimately, I mean, the layout is the original layout, the exits, the central corridor. There's very little detail inside the building worth preserving. There are the engaged columns in the hallway and those beams that those engaged columns are holding up are fake. They're simply there for decoration. So that may be the only element, and we can certainly work around that if it turns out that's something we have to preserve. But the presumption is that we can have our way with the interior pretty much.
And would you be keeping the heights of the ceiling heights, or is
Yes,
that?
I'm a big fan of keeping the ceiling as high as humanly possible.
Sounds good.
So what would probably happen in this case, it would probably be strapped with new drywall, but we would keep the ceiling as high as humanly possible.
And with the historic tax, but there's like a lot of back and forth normally, or how's that work? You just put together your proposal, send it in,
And then they push back and then we
you
negotiate.
negotiate some more. Okay.
We're always looking for moral support in these matters.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of people in the audience. Carol McGlinchey, name and address, and go ahead. Carol, you're unmuted.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Clark.
Okay? Carol McGlinchey, 10 Beacon Hill, Housatonic. This is just a minor question, but there's a low cement wall there where residents have access to sand and salt in the wintertime. We can come and get buckets of sand. Property, or is that on the school property? Because it seems to me goes there. It's right up against where people back up to get their sand and.
I think it's the place you were showing where the trucks go in.
Right, where the, right, where the two dumpsters, there's an existing dumpster and then there's,
Yeah.
we're proposing to put another one right next to it. And smooth that grade out because it's a little uneven and I think it would look a lot better, be more functional if we did that.
My question is that part of your the school property or the Hoosie Dome property, and what's going to happen to that cement wall and the sand and salt that's usually kept there?
Chris, can you just put that picture back up again?
Yeah, so.
Sure.
These
This is
our
Chris.
intention to relocate that. I mean, we would like to see,
I think
we would
it's
like
right
to
where
see
it stands.
between the two buildings here.
Yeah.
It's actually right here, Dave.
It's
It's
right
this, it's this,
Right.
this sand, and we do want to relocate that. It's something that we'll need to talk to the town about where, would be a place that would be convenient to residents and that the town, would be willing to maintain. But in order for our parking to work on the side opposite the park, we need to be able to back out of those spots and that needs, that grade from one building to the other between those two buildings needs to be smooth enough that it can all be driven on.
Right.
And so we'll just need to find a place for it.
It's a little.
It was just
messy, right?
obvious to me, and I just wanted to bring it up because it was obvious to me it was going to have to be moved, but no one was discussing it. That's all.
Thank you, Carol.
I would say the answer. Probably yes.
Let's see who else. Ann O'Dwyer, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. Ann O'Dwyer, 26 Kirk Street. I'm just wondering, you mentioned that there isn't any plan to make it accessible. And I'm just wondering if even an outdoor ramp to get in. I mean, I'm just thinking about people who have periods of mobility issues or a family with a child in a stroller. Would it really be so impossible to put one ramp just to get into the first floor?
Well, of course it could be done. The difficulty is that the first floor is actually not just a few steps up to the front doors. It is actually 6 or 7 steps up to the first level. So that first level is probably 6-7 feet off the grade. And that translates into about 72 feet of ramp. So that would be difficult to achieve.
Yeah, it's a little misleading. It appears to be only a few steps, but that's actually to a foyer, which is still another 3.5, almost 4 feet below the first floor level.
Oh, I see.
This is similar to the Ramsdale Library, which we're doing.
We're gonna be looking at 70 feet of ramp.
Yeah, which we're doing.
It's 70 feet plus the landings.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
addition to the
Okay.
fact that you need to do something outside, or if it's inside, then it's another negotiation with Mass Historic about what elements, common elements would be.
All right, I certainly wasn't thinking of anything inside. Yeah, okay.
Appreciate that, Ann. Thank you. Anyone else?
I just,
Name and address, just come up to the microphone. It should be on. Maybe not.
Now,
Oh, right, for that total weight. There you go.
working?
Yeah, it's more that they've got yarn on it.
No, I can just project too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ben Elliott, 208 Pleasant Street. I just have a few questions. Thank you for presenting tonight and thanks for your questions already. So one question I had in comparison to your proposal versus the other one that is currently being considered. Do you have any plans for water filtration in the building?
That's something that we would like to talk to the town about, what the plans are. We've read about it a very long time. We know there's some issues there and ultimately something needs to happen. So we probably do need to have some type of filtration system. I understand that water passes all the tests, but it's just unpleasant to look at and smell perhaps. But, so we understand there's probably need to do a filtration system. I did read the article, last week about a suggestion of a $200,000 filtration system. I really can't comment on that. I have no idea where a number like that would come. I don't know if Robert can respond to that, a number like that, and how expensive would it be to actually address the issues that a lot of residents have in that community right now? That seemed like a big number to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much. I think the initial system actually isn't very expensive. There are some residents actually have it in their own home. What's expensive is maintaining it, that the filters need to be changed pretty often and they're fairly expensive, but the system itself is not expensive.
I live across the street from the school and I have a filtration system, and I would say that over the course of the summer, my water was like a light tea on many days, so there will probably be an issue even with.
Yes, and the other issue is fire flow, fire pressure. We've talked to our sprinkler engineer, who's very familiar with the village system. And he said that we obviously need to have a residential sprinkler system as opposed to full commercial. I believe well, no, it may be full commercial because of the size. But he said that he thinks that the pressure on the hill is just barely enough to actually put in a full sprinkler system in the building. So I think we're okay on the water pressure. Water quality is something that I don't think that the village is going away, so we all have to deal with it sooner or later and make it work.
I have a question about how you're using the historic tax credit. Does it require any sort of materials, like to match the materials of the existing building? Is that a part of it at all, or is it just aesthetics?
They would love to have, the only thing that would be on the outside of the building, typically there would be slate on a building like this. The slate is already gone, so they don't typically make you put back slate. I believe that's correct. So we would put back a very high quality asphalt shingle. And the windows is always a negotiation. There is vinyl windows, there's wood windows, and aluminum windows. And so what they're mostly after is the architectural look, the shape of the detail of the window, more than the material.
What about brick? If you have to replace brick, what would you have to match the original brick? Or?
Yes, but we don't see a lot of that happening. The brick looks like it's pretty much intact all the way around it. There's going to be obviously some repointing here and there, but we don't see a lot of brick completely missing.
Even on the west side where the water damage from the roof, as it's there's that brick.
That would be taken out and replaced. I mean, and you can match the brick close enough to satisfy that.
I'm just curious, you only had 25,000 in your budget for masonry work, and it just seems like kind of a low number looking at. I look at that wall every day,
Right.
And it just there seems like there's extensive damage. Right. So I know it's still early in the process, but I just didn't know how that would affect your budget. You do have to match that brick to completely replace the wall.
Yeah, it's just a question of finding the right match, and it doesn't increase the cost to find the right match. It just takes a little more time, but
on that wall, I'm curious. You mentioned that you would be removing the doors in the parking lot side on the west
I
side.
think so. Yes.
What would be replacing it?
The door, you mean the doors that
The-
are elevated?
Yeah, the stairs. I'm just
All
curious.
stairs would be
design-wise.
eliminated.
Yeah.
And the doors, typically what would be done is the door would probably be put back in and.
So on the
without
exterior, the
stairs.
door would just be in the air, and on the interior, it'd be covered with sheetrock, you wouldn't even know it was there.
So it would just be kind of like the silhouette of a door. or
Correct.
something. Okay,
It might be just a dummy door that does not open.
gotcha. And then I have a few questions about the parking lot. So I know you said, yeah. So in your drawings, are you proposing that you would actually build a sidewalk along the parking lot and then kind of connecting it to the existing island in front of the community center? Jeremy, there.
So again, that sidewalk was initiated by the town in their feasibility. So the presumption is that the town is intending at some point to do that.
Is that true? I hadn't heard anything about that. I've asked that this time before in community meetings and I hadn't. Is that happening?
I'd have to ask our public works with that. I don't.
Okay.
So you're talking about this area?
No, I'm talking about this area and this area and this area.
Yeah, all that sidewalk doesn't exist now.
Right, that doesn't exist.
Right, and this was a carryover from what we had from Foresight, and knowing that this is probably a little bit tight, this would need to be modified.
Right. That was from a study that when the town was looking to show that parking was available.
Yeah.
Right, so that was a suggested fix. Okay. To achieve what. So you would not be building that.
Correct.
Okay.
We are
I was
not-
like, wow, how generous.
We are not proposing to build a sidewalk.
So this is just really.
We need to put in our budget everything that's needed to create the parking necessary for this building, that would be, that's.
Okay, so then I guess, but are you still proposing to build this rain garden down here? Is that part of your
No.
proposal? No, okay. So it would just be the side of the parking lot as it currently exists.
Right, on the property line. Right.
Because in this drawing, we would be losing a few spots from the community center parking lot as it's laid out here, but.
I think that's probably accurate. I think you'd probably lose two here. Probably, yes.
I think it's Paramount, we lose 4, actually, but. Sorry. So, and then with your parking along the building, will that be enforced? I'm guessing it's reserved for your tenants, is that correct?
Yes.
And will there be any sort of enforcement plans?
So in what respect?
I mean, how do you keep it from your next door community center, which has, farmers markets, basketball, many uses where people come and park in the parking lot. How would you keep?
Typically, each one would be,
Just a
probably
plaque.
have a plaque, and we probably, in this case, we probably assign it per unit, so it's pretty clear to anybody who intended to park there. It's not only parking for the building, it's somebody's specific parking space.
Okay.
That'd be easy to do.
And if there were any issues, would that just be something to bring up with the town?
It's management, that's what property managers do, right?
Okay. All right, so my last question is, the other bid really kind of, the proposal talks a lot, and I know they're doing a mixed use proposal, and this is just residential.
Just housing.
Yeah, but I'm just kind of curious on kind of the higher level and also on more of the logistics side. How do you see this project engaging with the community once it's completed? Like, you will be my neighbor. How will this building be adding to the vitality of the village center? And then just also like logistically, how will you kind of be fitting in the flow of things? I don't know if you thought.
Well, we're hoping that 10 units is not creating too much density. These are going to be 10 market rate apartments in what is otherwise an empty building. We think they're going to be good tenants. They're going to contribute to the neighborhood and the village at large. So we think it's a very good fit. We did talk a lot about, is there a way that we would be comfortable creating a mixed use within that building, and we could not come up with it. If this was a conventional 3-story building where the ground floor was that grade, absolutely, that's a good model. But because of the way these schools are built with that below grade, we could not be comfortable having a long-term investment with relying on any kind of commercial use in the basement. There are also many building code issues when you combine uses. Exiting problems, sprinkler issues, security issues. And so we decided to have it with 10 residential and all residential market rate rentals. We're more comfortable with that proposal.
And again, I keep coming back to this, but I want to point out, because I think it's significant that these aren't just market rate units. These are very large 2-bedroom market rate units. So, I mean, it's conceivable that there will be children in the center of town, living next door to a park. I mean, I think that's huge engagement.
I mean, there already are children.
But it's not living
The
literally
other thing I
next door.
talk about, but the neighborhood, we find that the larger, nicer units, you create a community within the building and people stay longer. They're more permanent residents. We find that the smaller the apartments are, the more transient they tend to be. So these are nice sized apartments, and I do think it would establish a permanent residency for years and years and years. So we've been doing this for a long time, and we have tenants that have been with us for 20, 25 years.
That's great.
And so the bigger the units are, the more stability there is and more ability to create that neighborhood feel I think we're getting.
Great. Just one last question. So I noticed between the packet that you submitted in August and one you have today, it looks like rent your proposed rent has already gone up about $15. I understand there's a lot of factors in play here. And yeah, and I believe that the interest rate in your letter of intent has already gone up since the end of October as well. Yeah, so do you see, I know you're capped at what you're gonna be,
And that cap flows.
It
And
does.
the third party reference, which makes it easy for both sides to reference a third party number. It's an odd number that's proposed, that is published all the time.
Right.
And so our rent would be based on that number.
I'm just curious, do you see your rent going up from the 1765 number?
Yes,
before
Of
market
course,
rate? Okay.
1765 was a snapshot based on numbers that we put together when we were asked to submit back in March.
Okay.
And now we're 6-8 months later, and two issues are going on. Time has gone by, plus we've also had, we know that we've had a massive amount of inflation in the last 6 to 8 months. So that's something that, we have to deal with. But the rents will float with that index.
Thank you.
Third party index.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I got one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to the landscaping side, on the school side, intentions or to the playground side. Intentions are just to keep it clean, no transition between the actual town park, town common. and-
There might be perhaps some foundation plantings along that.
Yeah.
Where the windows, we may create window wells that you would not see. It's for moisture control and all that, but you wouldn't see the window wells. They would be flush to the ground and maybe 6 inches high.
Yeah.
And then some foundation planting. Other than that, it would be green all the way up to the building.
Yeah, no patios or barbecue areas.
No,
or
we would not
anything.
allow that. I don't think so.
So
Yeah, I just had a question about the electricity. You said the renters would be responsible for electric and AC. And so the laundry facility is gonna be within the apartment.
Right.
And you'd mentioned it probably would come to around $125 a month. How are they, what's the electric? Is it?
Probably more than that. That's probably, yeah, because there was,
Okay.
at a time, there was a point in time originally, we were going to include heat with a central boiler. That doesn't make any sense. What we're proposing in the boiler room is using the tank, the oil tank. Someday oil will go away, but it's our understanding that tank was only put in 12 years ago. If that's the case, it probably meets all the codes. We would propose using that with a brand new high-tech oil fired furnace inside and use that to heat the common areas. That's what we do in a lot of our buildings. We use that for supplemental heat in the common areas. But if you're gonna have air conditioning, you might as well put it in the heat pump, put it all in the unit. So the units will pay for their heat and air conditioning. They'll be 100% electric, and we're proposing foam walls on the outside.
Okay, so it's electric heat.
Yeah, it's a
Are
heat
they
pump,
splits?
Heat pump, split system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Split systems within
Yes.
each, okay.
Yes, these would be heat pumps, high-tech, high-efficiency heat pumps. And we're proposing, as long as the store says it's okay, is to clear out the walls and use foam. That is by far and away the very best way to insulate a building today with foam.
Okay.
Much better. If you're starting it from scratch this way and you have exposed framing, gotta be foam.
And one last question, Wi-Fi. What are your thoughts about that, or how are we up there on them?
For a unit this size, we have been typically for small buildings, 4, 5, 6 units, everybody pays for their own. But as soon as we get to a certain level, we do bulk purchase and we include it in the rent. For example, if you went to buy a package today, it might be $75 or $100. What we do is we do a bulk package and it drives costs down to about 50. And we include it in the rent. And that gets you, that doesn't get you premium channels, that just gets you internet and basic television.
So that's within the 100% AMI.
No, that's a
package.
different, no, you
Separate.
can add that on top because HUD doesn't
Okay.
consider that an
So
essential
it's a
part of the
deal.
calculation for determining your 30% burden for rent. That's over and above.
Okay, so it's additional.
But a building like this, we would probably look at the bundle. We have that in 4 or 5 buildings now.
Cecilia, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Name and address, please.
Thanks. Cecilia Turner, 208 Pleasant Street. Just a question on the timeline. I know you were talking about how hard it could be to get these historic grants. And I was wondering, in the worst case scenario, From signing the contract to opening your doors, could you estimate maybe how long it would take, construction and money raising wise?
I think we have a timeline that we were asked for. And I think we would stick to that number, and obviously it's based on the day we would be selected. But I think we talked about October, 2 years, talked about 2 years. So
Thank you.
if it goes back and forth, it's so basically 2 years from a date.
Anyone else before we move ahead? Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. And thank you very much for accommodating our schedule. I was out of town and couldn't be here in person. We wanted to do it this way, but so thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay, appreciate it. Eileen, your hand goes up so many times, you're gonna get a cramp. I wasn't ignoring you, I just thought it was a mistake.
Would you like these extra copies of that?
Hold on. Eileen, do you have a question?
You need them?
I do, but I'm going to write it to you. Seeking.
Well, they're here right now. If it's something you want them.
All right, I cannot find on either the original or the newer proposals any reference to the 650,000 from the town. So I'm wondering if somebody could send that to me.
Okay, we can do that.
That has that information.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next is select board motion to appoint associate member to the planning board. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to appoint to the planning board, the associate member,
Jackie.
Jackie Kane.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Are you Jackie?
I'm actually Jackie.
If you want to come up here and.
No.
Okay, you don't have to. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure this can be unanimous. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition.
Warning,
Oh, yay,
planning board meetings are longer than this.
I heard.
But not as much fun either.
All right, yeah.
Yes, this is fun.
I was, it was meant.
Can I say thank you?
You're of course.
Or have you voted?
Yes, you voted, you're on.
So you don't
Thank
have
you
to-
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for volunteering your time.
My pleasure.
Okay, next is a vote to authorize the unused bond proceeds for completed capital projects be applied to the debt service payments. Mark?
So this is a request from our interim finance director, finance coordinator. She's just doing some cleaning up of leftover bond balances. So you, Lee, you should have a motion. If you have any questions, I'm happy to pass them on. I'm not well versed in this.
Let's have the motion and a second and we'll have discussion.
I make a motion to apply the surplus loan proceeds of all capital projects to the payment of debt service in accordance with GL chapter 44, section 20.
Second.
Discussion.
So just to break it down for a simple mind like mine here. So that this is all what came, the budget came under, right? So this is leftover money.
Correct.
Now we're just gonna put it whatever debt's float now.
Yeah. And if it's under 50,000, we can do that without.
Sounds amazing.
Yes.
The statute's referenced in the motion, so.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Citizen speak time. Select board time. Garfield.
Nothing.
Eric.
Nothing at this time.
Eric, nothing. Lee, nothing. Media time. By unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah.